is Marjaneh Rouhani, and I'm very, very honored to be at your presence today in the English-speaking section of International Iran Television, Aryaee, Television Iran Aryaee, that is supported by each and every one of you who's tuning in from across the world, including inside Iran. And I'm proud to say that many, many Iranians from across Iran, small cities, big cities, despite the brutal Islamic Republic and their Hashd al-Sha'bi Fatimiyun sharpshooters shooting directly at people, and people peacefully protesting, asking for their freedom. They are standing up, and it's been a media blackout, except today. I think Associated Press started making some reports, Reuters started making some reports, and it seemed like after almost a week, more than a week, I think. It's the 8th day. And after 6 youth have died under age of 18. I mean, that's the prime of anybody's life, just asking for freedom, and a lot of manipulation by fake news, fake opposition. People stood up in front of the brutal regime, and they spoke up and they asked for freedom, and they did not go back home. It seems like mostly in the evening time it's kind of scheduled, and there is a service or site net blocks that shows that the internet tremendously slows down. And during this session today, I really want to focus. This is our program that we do in English again, and for Constitutional Movement of Iran, that the anniversary is coming up pretty soon, I think in 2 weeks. We have been doing this program in Farsi and English with Dr. Saeed Hamzavi, and he will be here with us tomorrow at 12 noon. And this program is, I want to repeat it again, we have it on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and then on Thursdays at 3 p.m. and then on Fridays 12 noon New York Standard Time. And then on Sunday we have a program, and that's more focused on the medical aspects of what's really going on in the world. It seems like we've been locked down, and despite the lockdown, this whole thing is not going away. So we're not going to we'll talk about that on Sunday. But before I forget and move on with the proud Iranian uprising, despite all this brutal suppression by the Islamic Republic, as well as all their cronies who are working for the media and all the other countries who are supporting Farsi-speaking, non-Iranian Farsi-speaking media, and just suppressing all this important world information that is geopolitically substantial information in terms of really balancing out what people of, 80 million people inside Iran and outside Iran want is to bind together and stay together, save their sovereignty like any other country, and just do their normal life, versus all this havoc that this regime has created since its inception. And since its inception, there are many documents that Khomeini and his people who brought him in by Air France in February of 1979, I think, the moment they landed, they started slaughtering brave Iranians, whoever was part of the army, whoever was accused by any neighbor, whoever was, it was a nightmare. And it's been a nightmare that's been going on and on and on. And like any problem, and if it's not solved, and you just feel like you start a problem somewhere and it's going to stay there, because the world, we are connected together. This whole terror regime has, or terror attitude or terror behavior has been contagious and been, it's a real COVID, if you want to call it a pandemic or a COVID of 1979. This is where the problem is. And a lot of, because Iran is in a special region, and for example, we may live in Tehran, but in Tehran we have Azari people, we have people from south of Iran, Bushehr, Khuzestan, Shiraz, Khorasan. So, and in every province it's the same. People have intermarried and they speak different languages. It's not like everybody in Tehran speaks Farsi, or in Azerbaijan speaks Azari. Everybody is intermingled, and they're basically in the big picture relatives, and they just it's like a Persian rug that you all enjoy and you have seen. And even Freddie Mercury was famous for putting a Persian rug whenever he was singing in his concerts, that he started that tradition. But Iranians essentially have been in continuous, if you want to look at the real spectrum, since 4 years ago, Iranians have been in a persistent and consistent uprising and calling for their own law and order, and essentially their own constitution. And their famous saying and a statement in almost every gathering, every uprising is Reza Shah, Ruhat Shah, and Reza Shah is today even Reuters mentioned that Reza Shah the First, or we call him Reza Shah the Great, because in only 16 years he really made a huge impact, and we call him the father of the new Iran. And in terms of medical care, water, in terms of really establishing the infrastructure for the country, that by law and order of Mashrute or constitution. And if you look at his, actually both Pahlavis, Reza Shah the Great and Shahanshah Aryaee or Muhammad Reza Shah, that everybody calls the Shah, and known as the Shah when anybody mentions Shah. They always were the most law-binding leaders in the world. And even now, we have, by our constitution, Reza Shah II, who is in exile. We call him Shah in exile. And today, one of the members of administration mentioned him as a leader of opposition, which is the fact. It's not an opposition, as a matter of fact. It's all of Iran has been waiting, and calling him to come back to Iran and basically to restore law and order. We have a certain cultural system, and for every system to basically work, and these changes, these promises, the Khomeini came in, for example, one of the things he was saying in Nofel Lashad, mind you, during his stay in France, he had probably, I don't know, if not tens, hundreds of interviews that was granted to this person who did not even speak Farsi accurately and knew some words, but even the accent was very, very unfamiliar to most of us. And he needed a translator for speaking English. And there's a famous clip of him, and I'm sure many people have seen, where the interviewer is asking, so how are you doing things? What are you doing? Are you sending guns to Iran and stuff, and or artillery to Iran? And as it turns out, they had opened the borders and they were pouring guns and artillery to Iran. And all these people from Lebanon, from Libya, from Palestine, who were in different camp trainings, were imported to Iran and were causing havoc. None of the bullets that killed Iranians were from the Iranian army, and that's part of history. So even right now, as it seems that Iranians are being killed by people who are wearing Iranian military outfit, when things kind of sort out, and if the forensics get done, according to our history, we never started wars until Khomeini came in, or we never even, and we don't kill each other, basically. And we're a very, very peaceful nation. And as a matter of fact, during Holocaust, it became a very special place for a lot of refugees who didn't have a place to go, and people welcomed many people, and those people decided to stay in Iran and picked up the culture and picked up a lot of traditions from Iranians, and it's a very nice feeling, the kindness, the loving feeling we have for each other and for the rest of the world. And as you see, there has been a lot of mention even for the people who have been forced migrating to other countries after Khomeini came. They have contributed to a lot of advancements in technology, medicine, journalism, a lot of fields that I don't remember off the top of my head right now. And with love and affection and contributing, basically to anywhere they go. And we're very proud of that. And for the first time, I think it was on July 20th, I think maybe Senator Rubio had done a Farsi tweet, but on July 20th, he did a Farsi tweet and also an English one supporting the Iranians, and said that he stands by the Iranians. And Mr. Biden also, President Biden also made an announcement about how he supports the Iranian movement and uprising, and stands by Iranians. And I know that's a very, very tough position, because at the same time, they have been in some sort of negotiations with something that doesn't actually exist, because this whole thing that calls itself the Islamic Republic, it doesn't even have a head or a tail, or it's just a mishmash of something that most of them have taken off from the country. They have stolen and mismanaged a lot of resources. All this, I want to say, water or electricity, or all these things that seem to be scarce right now, they're due to their mismanagement and sending fresh water to Iraq, to other countries, and depriving the Iranian citizen from their own resources. And I think, this goes to say that these people came into Iran to just destroy Iran and Iranians with intention, without intention, or however it happened. We don't want to ask why. We want to just focus on the hows of getting out of this whole mess, so we don't have an official state in the globe, in the world, that is known for a state of terrorism. Iranians are the most peaceful people, and we are so intertwined with the American culture too, in a sense. Although there are many in Europe, but our famous constitution, our constitutional movement in 1906. An American teacher was also fighting for freedom along the revolutionaries to establish freedom in Iran. And it took a few years, but it was finally done. It took a lot of negotiations, like the Constitution in the United States, but it was done. And everything subsequent to that was by law and order, and nothing was nothing was ever done by the Pahlavis that was against the Constitution. As a matter of fact, in terms of even human rights, we have this amendment that says everybody is equal in front of the law, and Shah of Iran, Shah Aryaee, used that clause to give the right to vote to women almost 10 years before Swiss women were able to vote. So it's a real document and a real living testimony to how our accomplishment as a nation is able to progress and be means of a very peaceful transition at this moment, where everybody in Iran is wanting Shah of Iran return to Iran. We have so many clips. I didn't know when I was sending. I'm just going to say thank you, many thanks to our great Siavash, our producer, who works 24/7. But I sent so many clips, and I couldn't even know what to choose from. I started losing counts of all the clips of the brave, courageous Iranians, and the word courage again comes from heart, the COR, or coronary, and courage. That's the heart of Iran. That's where the beef is. That's where the culture is. And unless we restore that, the surrounding countries who were able to enjoy a lot of peace and stability and free and fair, I think, trade and negotiations and all of those chaoses that was created in 1979 could have been all avoided. There were just some miscommunications, and there are things that get missed in translation. And again, we want to focus on the hows as to how to get through this. And on paper, it seems pretty doable, very, very peacefully, because if you go by the Constitution of 1906 and the progressive amendments and reforms of 1963, they're very well advanced and even better stated than the United Nations Charter and all of the things that to maintain our sovereignty, and that's all the Iranians want. And in terms of, a lot of Iranians are pretty sensitive to this situation about when people coming in with different flags. We have one flag. It's a three-colored flag of red, white, and green, and with the lion and sword. And that's in our constitution again. And just to remind everyone, tomorrow in Strasbourg, I think that's how you pronounce it, Dr. Said Hamzavi will be having a speech along many Iranians who are gathering there. And again, is one of the unique countries. I mean, it's an amazing situation where we from all across the world are bonded together in love and togetherness from all across ideas, and religion, different languages that we speak in different areas. And in the same household, you may have different areas of the country who have married, and so they speak different languages even in the same household. And so to hear some of these think tanks who get paid by the Islamic Republic to promote some other military or militant groups to bring into the region to fuel hostility and all of that, and to say that, you have to, to tear things apart, and it's just gonna create more chaos and havoc. Iranians are the most united country by culture, by their behavior, by that's how we are. And we learn from other cultures and we bring it to Iran, and we also export our culture, and it's a loving interchangeable relationship, and we need to respect that, and we need to kind of really shut down this whole bloodshed at this moment. Enough is enough. We have had the youth under age 18 to be shot at directly to peaceful protesters. I mean, this can happen in any country, any place, anywhere. And in the midst of all this chaos and fear-mongering and chronic fear status that we've been living in for the past I want to say at least since March 11, 2020, this transition, this peaceful transition to our law and order, where we know where people are going to be occupying their own position, be in the place where they're supposed to be. And I actually watched a clip from a representative in the supposed parliament in Iran, and it was an amazing, incredible clip that I saw, because the person was talking about problems, and there were some people in the supposed parliament, because in Iran they call it a stable, because nobody is in the right place. And actually Hans Christian Andersen has a story about how the world gets upside down when the right things are not in the right places, and it's a child story, but it has a very beautiful, powerful message, and it's so true. The person is talking about how the mismanagement is causing this, causing that, and in 2 years, in 4 years, 7 years, it's gonna result in catastrophic events. And nobody's listening. Everybody's talking to each other. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody's taking notes. And it's just a land without law and order, where that's why we're symbolic of inability for a country like the United States or even the European Union, who has been pushing for this JCPOA, or all the Islamic Republic advocates to push for this JCPOA. And I want to repeat, I mean, I agree with Secretary Pompeo, as a matter of fact, when he said the enemy of Iranians who wants to destroy Iranian culture is Islamic Republic. It's not the Americans, as a matter of fact. And this is the exact same statements that Iranians have repeatedly stated in their uprisings over and over again. And they have said, our enemies here, not outside, as they say, they meaning the Islamic Republic, because they have been trying to brainwash the youth and all these things that, the psychological things, and it just doesn't work for Iranians or on Iranians, all these psychological manipulations. And this is something that's kind of, I want to say, engraved in our DNA, in that sense, that we just kind of get magnetized, and we are for our culture and for our sovereignty. And we respect the other republics that were part of the bigger Iran before, who also celebrate Nowruz. There are 21 or 22 countries who celebrate Nowruz, and you can see the vast connection of this whole area together. And this Islamic Republic that's out of nowhere is causing havoc and sending terrorists and stealing or sending people to decapitate dissidents or brutally kill. It's just unacceptable, I think, in the 21st century, as we are approaching actually the 22nd century. So, I mean, we have to come together, not just as the Iranian dissidents, but also in agreement with the international community to realize that, the world has really deteriorated since 1979. Whatever policies were followed were wrong, did not work, and will not work. If you're talking about communism, for example, it has not worked. And actually, there's a very famous clip from Dr. Carl Jung that we shared before. Collectivism doesn't work and does not bring the best out of a human being. And the way humans have evolved during the past few centuries, at least, we can, it's fresh in our minds, is this individualism and this yearning for learning and knowing the truth and knowing what's behind the curtain and who is behind the curtain. And with the World Wide Web that has been available to people, Iranians have used it for good reasons, and they know they really have stopped a lot of them. And actually, Ms. Shabnam Asadullahi, who is a freedom fighter, and she lives in Canada, and she used to have a radio, made a clip, and basically requested that, for all of us to really stop listening to these fake news, fake media, which always have diverted the attention from, because they work for other governments. And I know that I'm not going to enter into other discussions. I want to keep it focused on this issue that, as long as these people are getting paid by other governments, they, if Iranians want to basically accomplish what they need to accomplish, they have to really get beyond this fake news, fake opposition, and all these character building. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. I mean, there has been attempts by the Islamic Republic to kind of show some evolution or some change of face, but Iranians are very, very aware of the multiple personality disorder of the Islamic Republic, and have seen beyond it, and they don't want a Khomeini in a skirt. They don't want anything but their own law and order, which is our Constitution, 1906, and the progressive reforms of 1963, and the free election charter that was put together by Dr. Nasser Sfahani, who was the Secretary of State of Prime Minister Almozegar at the time. He came up with the rules and regulations for the free election, because the economy was doing very good, and the progress was being made to move into just better election charters and the free election that everybody wants to accomplish. Of course, in every election there are some irregularities, or the people who don't win the election, they have complaints, like when in 2016 the amount of quote-unquote resistance was incredible. Right now in the United States, which is the largest democracy or a constitutional republic, we see all this, it's as if you have your foot both on the gas and the brake at the same time. And I think it's finally getting across that if basically the things that were getting missed in translation are being translated by the right people, recognition is being made. The senators have met with Reza Shah II, or the Shah of Iran in exile, and we want to basically, the Iranians are asking from inside Iran for the flight of the constitution, what we call constitutional flight, for the constitutional flight to be arranged from inside Iran to take the Shah of Iran back to Iran, so that everything kind of gets built up from that moment on, where we get the constitutional parliament going and we get the free election going, and it is a free sovereign nation where we can restart and renew our bond, peaceful bond, what Iranians want. And there's a very nice clip that Reza Shah II put on his Twitter from President Biden talking about the South Africa and South Africans, and how he strongly was stating that he wants and everybody should stand by this, what South Africans want, rather than what the South Africa, the government at the time where the apartheid was. But the advantage we have, we can skip through all the chaos or all the cost and all the international havoc of that was created in Iraq or in Afghanistan or Syria, because we do have our book, we do have our constitution, and all it takes is to basically arrange for that constitutional flight from inside Iran to take the Shah of Iran back to Iran to make things in order. And Of course, we still have a lot of work to do, and after all the damages that has been done, and as all the cities and all the provinces are joining up together, and in I think was Tuesday, I think the people from Tehran started saying Javid Shah, meaning long live the king, and the people at work, they just I think was Mullah Rouhani, who said he gave a holiday, office holiday, to schools, to offices, and everything. I don't know if how would qualify for the schools if it's not summertime there yet or not. But they announced a holiday from Tuesday to Sunday, which means like a semi-coup or a semi what you call it, where martial law, basically, where they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do because there is nothing to do. People do not, they have disqualified themselves. They have disgraced themselves. They have nothing to offer. It's like every time they have attempted to do any project, it's like they've they really have done very poorly, and we have many actually. Maybe I'm laughing because it reminds me of funny pictures of they made very like a 2-meter long bridge, and there's this ceremony, and two mullahs are cutting a ribbon, and where we have these massive bridges that has been built through the centuries or even during the past 100 years, and these people have even if you wanted to kind of give it a try, and like when President Carter was saying, well, I'm a religious man, so Khomeini is a religious man, so I will get along with him. Khomeini didn't bring anything but pain and misery and disaster and catastrophe to the whole entire world. And other than promoting sex trafficking, other than promoting child trafficking and stealing and selling off what belongs to the Iranians, and leaving Iranians in a trash can, literally, with no food, no water, no just the first necessities of life. The system has not been even able to reform itself, because it's like when you don't have the right blueprint, you cannot build a building on a messed up blueprint. There was no blueprint. The blueprint was to pick up, a hammer and just destroy everything, it seems, and just kill anybody who says anything. And that's just not going to work. If we are freedom-loving people, if we are freedom-speaking people, if we want to stand by humanitarian values, we do have the means, and we do have the tools to make this happen. And this will be actually the crown and jewels for this administration, who is always in trouble, it seems, and has a difficult time to kind of restore the trust, or restore the relationship with the American citizens, because again, the people, that's part of the problem with the republic situation, where there's election every 4 years, and every time the system changes or president changes, the laws change and the attitude changes. Everybody starts beating each other in the head, and in a very volatile region of the world. Maybe it works for America, But in a volatile region, in the most volatile region in the world, Iran, for 57 years under Constitution 1906, was able to manage the longest and most peaceful time in the world. And so, I mean, there are always ups and downs. And when the slavery was denounced by when feudalism was ended and the landowners were ended, basically in the sense that lands were given back to the farmers. That was a shock to the system, and it seemed like there were a lot of propaganda to just, instead of allowing things to kind of take its course so that we come through the slavery system that was established in the 1400s, and this was just a new Iran that was blossoming. And you can see through all the beautiful pictures how people are happy and prospering and traveling and having the fantastic relationship with our brothers and sisters in Israel, in Saudi, in Iraq, in Kuwait, and I mean everywhere. I mean India. And everybody was basically, we had at least 50,000 Americans living in Iran. And basically there were more and more people coming to Iran, and they were enjoying the environment, they were enjoying the culture, and they had their own school. If they wanted to go to Farsi-speaking school, they would, but they had their own American school. The Italians had their own school, and it was a place where the nations would meet again. And actually, Apadana, where we see the pictures of different cultures carrying a gift to the king, that's where the United Nations actually, for the first time, took place, where everybody would come in from the empire, from the faraway lands, to discuss their issues and to discuss their problems and come up with a solution and leave with a solution to resolve the problem. And so we have all these models throughout the centuries, and so it's kind of have been incorporated into our political system and into our political mind. And as much as a lot of people want to sometimes say, oh, I'm not a political person, everything we do is political. I mean, we know during the pandemic, for example, a lot of money was displaced from the middle class to like Walmarts and Amazons and all these big corporations. And all of them are travel to racing to space, for example. But you know, I think it's a political decision if you decide to pick up your prescription from a local moms and pops pharmacy versus getting it from a mail order that you don't know where it's coming from. And you know what's in it or what have you, or from a place where they don't support your community, the money doesn't come into the small community. So that's a political decision that, you know, if you're not ordering from Amazon, well, what is Amazon doing? I mean, it turned out that they did not, when they were delivering items, they didn't even have time to go to the bathroom, and that's basic necessity for a human being. So, I mean, these are some of the stuff that I wanted to mention, and also that there is this terrible law, I think that's after the Freedom Day in England. I think Mr. Johnson came out and said that because of some things, they have to enforce another lockdown, or people have to be forced to do something. And I really think they need to leave it up to the people to decide, because this is the first time in history where we are not allowing individual freedom, and we are not going to make it through the most difficult time in the century if we don't allow for individual freedoms again, or individual consciousness and responsibility, and the feeling and respected feelings of individuals, and leaving it to the discussion between individual doctor-patient relationship, instead of the volatile discussion that we saw, or question answer session that we saw between Dr. Rand Paul and the one doctor who is always kind of flip-flopping, Dr. Fauci, who's always flip-flopping. And I don't know when was the last time he literally saw a patient. And we know that he's entrenched with some of these pharmaceutical companies. And as a doctor, I mean, I was kind of shocked when, the Johnson & Johnson Corporation was, for example, the baby powder had asbestos, for 50 some years, and they knew it, and they would put asbestos in a baby powder, and then it comes out a few days ago that, forget that, the very expensive Neutrogena brand that belongs to Johnson & Johnson has some carcinogen in it. It's like we are caught by the tail anywhere we look, and we really need to be able to establish some individual freedom and some laws and some rules to see really where we're going to go from here, because we live in the age of transparency, and tyranny is not the answer. Like when they announced in England, I think what they announced was that they want to pass a law that if a journalist gets some sort of a whistleblower from information from a whistleblower, and it leads to an embarrassment or embarrassing official from England, then they can face up to 14 years in prison. And that goes against anything that we have experienced. This is the age of transparency, and this tyrannical movement is gonna it's not like going to be like Klaus Schwab saying, oh, we're going to have some resistance and we're going to win. No, Mr. Schwab, you're not going to win. There are phases in history that you pass and you cannot go back. You may want to kind of indicate what, there was this exposure of this British, I think, person who was actually handling the pandemic in England, and he ended up having a relationship with a younger person in his staff, and a lot of things happened, and he had to resign or something. And but basically he was just doing the opposite. So that would mean that, okay, if now the journalist released that information and this person is embarrassed, now we have to kind of expect a country like England, who is also known for democracy. Maybe they don't have a constitution, but they have precedents that they have free press. And, otherwise you're going to lose that balance of power between individuals. And then you have so much power in the government that nobody is going to be able to manage the government. And it's going to have like a Hitler on steroids. I think if somebody does something bad, then, what about that, for example, Dr. Nasser, who was raping all these children in the university. And so if the journalist, for example, goes and reports, or somebody is a whistleblower, they end up in trouble instead of us blaming and arresting Dr. Nasser for all the bad behavior he's done. So I think, there are certain movements that are happening that are not making sense. And I think it's because of the misplacement of so much wealth that's going into corporations instead of encouraging people to really overcome their fear and know that they have that each one of us is a miracle, and we have at baseline we have 20 trillion soldiers inside our system to fight for our immune system, and not to forget that the turning point for longevity of a human being was the number one cause of death in women before modern medicine was childbirth, and also dirty water. So when the water got cleaned and then we had modern medicine to take care of women, we were able to live longer and longer. Eating healthier led us to live longer. Now, so that's why I think some outlets you see, they think that they're horrified, that they think maybe there's a depopulation agenda going on and all these things that are causing more fear and breaking our immune system. And, this push about, everybody, like it's a cookie cut, do this, do that, because I say so. It hasn't worked before, and we've passed those years, and we've passed those historical stages. So we are moving forward, and moving forward, it would be moving forward as a human, not as a artificial intelligence, where we are living in an age of Terminator, where we are fighting something that we should not be fighting in a dark or dystopian, living in a dystopia. We should be able to preserve this beautiful environment, this beautiful loving relationships we have, the beautiful families we can create, and promote it. I mean, we know and we see all these NGOs that were formed to go to Africa, to go to India. They did not make things better for them, and all the chaos that happened in Haiti. I think most of you know more than I do, as a matter of fact. But I just want to remind everyone that we have to respect the culture and the individualism, and what is really revolutionary right now is that I think if the current administration continues on the current path and continues discussion with the leader of Iran, where all of the Iranians, basically most of the Iranians, 99% of Iranians agree that they're going to be under the same umbrella, under the constitution, the leader being Reza Shah II in exile. If they continue with the same approach, then it will be an amazing breakthrough to make sure it would really go beyond what President Trump was saying in terms of the Abraham Accord, because Iran was the stabilizing force in terms of what we accomplished during a very, very short period of time. And just go beyond the propaganda, go beyond all the the misinformation or disinformation and all that. And I think a lot of Iranians appreciated when they heard their leader to be acknowledged for the first time, because a lot of times they keep calling his name, Javid Shah, Reza Shah, come back to Iran, a Shah of Iran, return to Shah of Iran, return to Iran. And no outlet, no mainstream media, no alternative media. And as a matter of fact, it stayed for 6 days. This brutal suppression of Iranians stayed suppressed for days. And these Nayak people who work for the Islamic Republic all the time and behind closed doors, and they have lots of money. They were making it they don't have water. No, it's not about water. People are calling for their law and order. And the more you spread this information, saying it's about water, the more Iranians are able to realize who their friends are. And people, Iranians, nations, any nation, will remember their friends. And through history, we've been friend of everyone, actually, as a matter of fact, and we've been able to help other nations to be freed and come out of slavery. So we are hoping, with the support of Iranians, we can accomplish freedom, and we can just go beyond this craziness that allowing this invisible enemy shutting down all of our emotions and shutting all of our economy, and connect again together. With that thought, don't forget, Dr. Hamzavi is going to be having a speech on Saturday, and in Strasbourg, and also about constitutional movement. And as as we have spoken, as an independent person, and also we'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon tomorrow. Thank you.